Welcome to a wisdom tale. Today's story is called Greuceanu with the Golden Eyes. It's a Romanian folklore tale written by Petre Ispirescu, 1876. The story revolves around the quest of the hero named Greuceanu to retrieve the sun and the moon, which have been stolen by dragons. After a long and arduous battle with the dragons, Greuceanu successfully frees the celestial bodies, restoring light to the people on Earth. However, his journey back home is full of obstacles and challenges. This wisdom tale reinforces the moral lessons of heroism and bravery, faith and hope, intelligence and wit. It's about how righteousness will ultimately prevail against malevolent forces. Let's begin the story. Once upon a time, there was a king named the Red King. He was devastated because in his days, the dragons had stolen the sun and the moon from the sky. The world was now plunged into darkness, but there was hope that the light would eventually return. Therefore, he sent messengers to all his lands and heralds, to all the villages, announcing that anyone who returns the sun and moon from the dragons would receive a great reward, his daughter's hand in marriage and half his kingdom. But those who fail would be executed. Many men, brimming with confidence, had boldly claimed they could accomplish this great task. Yet, they found themselves struggling, in fear about how to begin or conclude. It was clear that they couldn't succeed. However, the king remained faithful to his word. At that time, there was a brave young man named Greuceanu. Upon hearing of the royal call, he thoughtfully considered the matter. Possessing courage and great faith in both God and himself, he went to the king's court to offer his help. On the way, he met two men whom the royal guards were taking to the king to be executed because they had fled from a battle the king had had with some gypsies. These men were deeply hopeless, but Greuceanu consoled them with kind words, offering them comfort, for Greuceanu was also a skilled orator. He placed his hope in this event and said to himself, "I will try my luck. If I succeed in persuading the king to spare these men from death, I will dare to undertake the great task. And if not, in good faith, I will go back where I came from. Let that be my luck. It never hurts to try." Therefore, with a yearning for such things, he arrived at the royal court. Appearing before the king, Greuceanu told him so many stories, uttered such good and wise words, and put so much skill into his speech that even the king thought it would be unjust to kill those men, that it would be more useful to have them alive and to show mercy to the people of the kingdom. Upon hearing that Greuceanu had so impressed the king as to receive their pardon, the people rejoiced. These two men expressed their sincere and profound gratitude to Greuceanu and promised to always pray for him, for as long as they live. This victory was taken as a good omen, and Greuceanu is going to the king for a second time. He spoke the following wise words: "Your Majesty, may you live for many years on the bright throne of this kingdom. Many mighty men have pledged themselves to your Majesty to retrieve from the dragons our sun and moon, and I know that they died because they could not fulfill the word they made to your Majesty. And I, your Majesty, I desire to go in search of these evil dragons. With God's guidance, we may be able to punish these malevolent creatures for their reckless audacity. But be merciful to me and lend me a helping hand." "My dear Greuceanu," replied the king, "I am unable to alter my words. This is solely because I strive to be just. My decrees will apply equally throughout my kingdom. I am committed to being fair." Seeing the king's firm decision and the justice of what he had spoken, Greuceanu said with a strong voice, "Yes, your Majesty, even if I knew that I would perish, I would still persevere until I had successfully completed the great task I undertook on my own free will." So they agreed, and a few days later Greuceanu left, having planned his journey. The young Greuceanu took his brother along. They walked and walked a very long way, until he reached the earth blacksmith, with whom he was a brother in faith. This earth blacksmith, being the greatest craftsman on earth, was a sorcerer as well. They paused there to rest. For 3 days and 3 nights, Greuceanu and the earth blacksmith stayed inside the shed, holding discussions and planning. After this short rest, Greuceanu and his brother resumed their journey. Immediately after Greuceanu left, the earth blacksmith promptly crafted an iron likeness of Greuceanu's face, then commanded that a fire be maintained continuously day and night, without ceasing. And Greuceanu and his brother walked a long way, and even longer, until a crossroad appeared before them. Here they stopped and sat down on the grass. They prepared a small meal from their remaining provisions, but the decision about which way to go weighed heavily on their minds. After embracing and shedding tears, they said their goodbyes. Before separating on different paths, the two brothers exchanged scarves and made a heartfelt oath. If our scarves become frayed at the edges, may we hope to meet again. And if a scarf is torn in two, let it signify that one of us is lost. They also placed a knife into the ground and said, the one of us who returns first and finds a rusty knife should not wait for the other one, because this means that he has died. Then Greuceanu turned to the right and his brother to the left. Greuceanu's brother, walking for a long time in the dry land, has finally returned to their separation point and, finding the knife clean, waited there joyfully as they promised each other. Meanwhile, the brave Greuceanu followed a path directly to the dragon's lair, a place where it is said the creatures raise their offspring. Upon arrival, Greuceanu gracefully demonstrated his mastery of the earth blacksmith's teachings. With magic, performing a triple jump over his head, Greuceanu transformed himself into a graceful dove. As a dove, Greuceanu flew and landed on a tree near the dragon's lair. Then, a young dragon girl came out and, looking in wonder, quickly turned around and called her mother and her little sister to see the miracle. The young dragon girl said, "My dear sister and mother, I fear that this lovely bird does not appear to be as harmless as it seems. Its eyes are not like those of a dove, but rather, they resemble the golden eyes of Greuceanu, and this brings great danger to us." The three dragonesses knew of Greuceanu. Tales of courage spread far and wide about the braveness of this young brave man. They quickly entered their house. A plan was needed and quickly, judging by the set of their looks. The three dragonesses had similar characteristics as their dragon husbands, such as strength, wisdom, and of course malevolence. The brave Greuceanu immediately performed another magic, the same triple jump over his head, but this time he shape-shifted into a tiny fly. He quietly entered the dragonesses' house like a fly. There, he hid in a crack in the ceiling beam, carefully listening to their plot. So he soaked it all in, then headed out down the road to the green forest and hid under a bridge. He learned that the three dragons went hunting in the green forest, and they're coming back. One in the evening, another at midnight, and the father dragon during the day. But soon, the first young dragon was already near Greuceanu by the bridge. His horse felt the danger, snorted and hopped back 7 steps. Then, the young dragon became quite angry. "I hold no fear for anyone in this world," said the young dragon, "except Greuceanu with the golden eyes. However, I could defeat him with one single blow." So Greuceanu, hearing that, went out on the bridge and responded, "Come on, brave dragon, let us fight with swords, let us fight in battle." They approached each other and began to fight. The fight was highly charged and full of action. The dragon partially buried Greuceanu in the ground up to his knees. But immediately, in a mighty blow, Greuceanu similarly buried the young dragon in the ground up to its neck, and cut off its head. He carefully placed the body of the dragon under the bridge, then patiently waited for the arrival of the second dragon. In the middle of night, the dragon's older brother arrived, and again his horse sensed a great danger. The horse jumped 17 steps back, and then the dragon became quite angry and said, "I hold no fear for anyone in this world except Greuceanu with the golden eyes. However, I believe I could defeat him with only one single blow." And Greuceanu responded as he had previously done. He bravely battled the dragon. The fight was full of intensity, The second dragon was stronger. He buried Greuceanu in the ground up to his waist. However, Greuceanu, with a grand swift jump, as he had done previously, managed to bury the dragon up to its neck, and then he cut off its head with his mighty sword. Throwing the dragon's corpse under the bridge, Greuceanu began to rest again and waited for the third dragon. At dawn, the magnificent father of dragons arrived, resembling a fearsome, tarred dragon. Upon reaching the bridge, his horse unexpectedly gets scared and jumps back 77 steps. This greatly unsettled the dragon, causing it to roar. "In this mighty world," said the father dragon, "I fear none but Greuceanu with the golden eyes. However, I could strike him in the eyes with my arrow. I believe I could defeat him." Then, Greuceanu came out from under the bridge and responded, "Fearsome dragon, I dare you to engage in a duel. Perhaps a sword fight, or a spear fight, or do you wish for a more formal battle?" The dragon arrived, and they started fighting. They fought with swords, and the swords broke. They hit each other with spears, and the spears broke. Then they started fighting by shaking each other until the earth shook. The fight was grand and heroic in scale, with quick and agile movements, but also harsh and merciless. The father dragon grabbed and squeezed Greuceanu, but Greuceanu got all tense, and nothing happened. Then Greuceanu, suddenly with a mighty force within, turned and squeezed the dragon's body, and crack, went to its bones. Never had there been such a fight. The earth is shaking and the sky is darkening. They battled and battled till the blizzards hit, and they were exhausted. A raven then soared overhead, gracefully gliding through the air and watching their fight. Seeing it, the father dragon said, "Raven, raven, black bird, please bring me a beakful of water, and I will gladly feed you a strong man." Greuceanu also said, "Raven, raven, please bring me a beakful of fresh water. I will gladly reward you with 3 dragon corpses." Hearing these words, the black feather raven brought Greuceanu a beakful of fresh water and quenched his thirst. He was very thirsty and in dire need. Then Greuceanu took courage, and empowering himself, he lifted the dragon and, slamming it into the ground up to its neck, put his foot on its head, holding it thus. Then he said to him, "Tell me, evil dragon, where have you hidden the sun and the moon? Today, you will not escape my hand." The dragon was weak. The creature's whimpers echoed through the valley like a melody of sorrow. Each breath seemed a struggle. "Whether you tell me or not," said with conviction Greuceanu, "I will still find them, and I will also cut off your head." The dragon, hoping to save its life by speaking truthfully, he said, "There's a cave located within the green forest, and the sun and the moon are locked inside. The key is on my right pinky finger." When Greuceanu heard this, he cut off its head, then cut off its pinky finger and took it with him. And as promised, he gave the raven all the dragon's corpses. Greuceanu went to the green forest, a forest which was like whispering among the trees. A hidden hut appears to the brave young man. Greuceanu opened the cave with the dragon's pinky finger and discovered the sun and the moon inside. Light flooded forth, revealing the celestial bodies held captive in the darkness. With great care, he placed the sun in his right hand and the moon in his left, gently setting them up in the sky, and expressed his immense joy. The whole world outside awaited for the return of its stolen brilliance. When the people saw the sun and moon again up in the sky, they rejoiced and praised God for giving Greuceanu such courage and strength to triumph over humanity's impious enemies. And satisfied that he had successfully completed the quest, he set off for home. He found his brother at the sign. They hugged, grabbed 2 fast horses, and headed back to the king. During their back-home journey, they encountered an enormous hedge. Its branches were laden with ripe, golden pears, gleaming in the sunlight. Greuceanu's brother suggested resting for a while in its shade to let the horses breathe. He picked some golden pears. But Greuceanu, who had heard the dragoness plan, felt a sense of unease. Caution whispered in his ear. He couldn't trust what he saw. Feeling like this being a trap, He then drew his sword and struck the base of the hedge, and blood and venom began to flow from it, and a faded voice from the trees was heard saying, "I'm gonna kill you," said a dragoness voice, "just as you killed my husband." But nothing remained after that mighty blow but dust and ashes, and his brother froze in wonder, not knowing what it all meant, and they left. They walked and walked. Now they came upon a very beautiful garden with flowers, butterflies, and clear, cold water. Greuceanu's brother said, "Shall we pause here for a short rest? Perhaps enjoying some cool fresh water and picking some of these beautiful flowers?" "Let's do that, my brother," Greuceanu replied. "Let's see if this garden was planted by evil hands or by God." Then again, drawing his sword, he struck the stem of a flower that seemed most beautiful of all, and then he laid it down. Then he stabbed the fountain's base and its sides, and instead of clean water, gross blood bubbled up, filling the place up. Dust and mood revealed the face of the second dragoness, for it had become a garden of poison. They hopped back on their horses and took off, fast like the wind. But now they had that mother dragon chasing them, chomping down with one jaw in the sky and the other on the ground, to gobble up Greuceanu and everything in her way. The creature's massive jaws threatened to consume the world. She had reason to be tarred and miserable. She had no husband, no daughters, no sons-in-law. She was seeking revenge and destruction. The brothers rode their swift horses. "Look behind," said Greuceanu, "and tell me what you see." "What should I see?" "A dark cloud chasing us like a whirlwind." The horses were going as fast as the wind and smooth as thought. But Greuceanu again told his brother to look behind. He saw that thick cloud approaching now, but like a big flame. In this chase, the brothers finally reached the earth blacksmith. The minute they got off their horses, Greuceanu went into the forge, the old dragoness furiously trailing him. She'd crush him, leave him nothing, if she could. The earth blacksmith resorted to a strategy. He asked Greuceanu to make a hole in the forge door, so that he could at least see through it. When the furious dragon mother arrived at the forge, Greuceanu pretended to yield in front of her, but he already made that hole in the wall. The mother ogress comes towards him, insanely enraged. Her fury radiated. A guttural growl rumbled. Her eyes burned with an unnatural fire. The earth blacksmith could now see Greuceanu's iron face, which had been kept and burned in the fire from the sparks within. When the mother ogress opened her mouth to the crack, she wanted to suck Greuceanu in. The earth blacksmith thrust the iron face, red and hot as fire, into her mouth and shoved it down her throat. She gulped, swallowed, and then boom! She just swallowed the iron replica filled with hot coals. The mother ogress instantly transformed into a giant iron mountain. So they got rid of the last dragon. The earth blacksmith opened the forge door, stepped outside. It was all over. They celebrated their magnificent achievement for 3 days and 3 nights. The earth blacksmith was extremely delighted by the large quantity of iron he was left with. He then instructed his men to create an iron chariot for the brave Greuceanu, to be drawn by 3 iron horses. When they were ready, he breathed upon the horses and gave them life. Greuceanu got into the chariot with his brother and set off for the Red King to receive his reward. The 2 brothers continued their journey until they reached a fork in the road. Here they paused for rest. Greuceanu untied the horses from the chariot. The horses were very tired. He asked his brother to go ahead and take the good news of his arrival to the Red King while he remained behind with the chariot. After a while, Greuceanu continued his journey back home. A lame devil appeared on the road. It seems that he was holding up all the travelers. The lame devil was afraid to confront Greuceanu, but still he wanted to ensure that Greuceanu did not go easily. He pulled out a nail from the axle head of a wheel and threw it away. "Oh dear, you've lost your nail," said the lame devil. "You must go and look for it." Greuceanu, jumping from the cart, mistakenly left his sword behind. While looking for his axle nail, the lame devil quickly stole the mighty sword. By the roadside, Greuceanu was repairing his chariot. He skillfully executed a magic trick, transforming himself into a stone slab to mount the nail in the axle head. Having secured it properly, he jumped back into the chariot and went on his way. However, Greuceanu did not realize his mighty sword was missing. My dear listeners, please give your utmost attention, as our hero Greuceanu is facing an unfortunate and unexpected situation. An evil man, no other than the king's counselor man, took advantage of the situation and stole the mighty sword. The kingdom is now the weight of the counselor's betrayal. The counselor knew that Greuceanu, without his mighty sword, was just a man like all others. His great powers were in the sword. So the thief approached the Red King, bearing the devilish promise to have a marriage with the king's daughter. The counselor, which by the way resembles a mongoose, appeared before the king and asked for Princess' hand, claiming that he was the most brave man from the kingdom, that he is the one who restored the sun and the moon in the sky. Upon seeing the sword, the king placed his trust in him, and together they began the wedding preparations. As the royal court prepared for the wedding of the king's daughter to the mongoose-like man, Greuceanu's brother arrived with the news of Greuceanu's imminent arrival. The greedy counselor, when he heard of this, went fast to the Red King and said that this man is a deceiver and should be imprisoned immediately. The counselor, the mongoose-like man, was rushing the wedding, figuring that if he married the king's daughter right away, 100 Greuceanus couldn't stop him. It'd be all over. An anxious energy was now, hinting a hidden motive behind the rush ceremony. So the king decided to postpone it. Shortly thereafter, Greuceanu himself arrived and presented himself before the king, leaving the king uncertain of whom to choose now. The Red King believed this to be the brave Greuceanu, but then he was puzzled as to how Greuceanu's sword had ended up in someone else's possession. Greuceanu also observed that the mongoose-like man no longer possessed the sword. He must have secreted it. This seemed even more suspicious. Our hero recalled seeing a stone sheepfold on the road to the kingdom, shortly after discovering his missing axle nail. Perhaps there's a clue there. "My mighty king," said Greuceanu, "everyone knows that you are a rightful king. Please do me justice. You have waited a long time. Wait a little longer, and you will see with the eyes of truth." The king agreed to wait until Greuceanu returned with the proof. He got fast into his iron chariot and rode, without pause, until he reached the stone sheepfold. There he was, the lame devil, he who broke the chariot. "You worthless and harmful devil," said Greuceanu, "land me my mighty sword which you stole from me, for nowhere can you escape from the dust of your lies." The lame devil, fearful, hides into the stone sheepfold. Then Greuceanu performed his magic, jumping over his head 3 times. He transformed himself into a large mace made entirely of steel. And when he began, my dear, to strike the sheepfold, the earth shook. With each blow, a stonefly fell. He continued striking and striking until the tip of his mace was shattered. Then the stone wall trembled, as if pleading for mercy. Just dust and small fragments littered the ground. Greuceanu searched into the remaining stone powder and found his mighty sword. He took it and, without resting but instead fueled by courage and strength, he reappeared before the king. "I am ready, my great king," said Greuceanu. "I am ready to show to anyone what my powers can do. Let that shameless evil man who wanted to deceive you come front, so we may face each other." The king called for the counselor. When he arrived and saw Greuceanu frowning, he trembled in fear and begged for forgiveness, explaining everything, how Greuceanu's sword had fallen into his hands. Following Greuceanu's suggestion, the counselor received a pardon from the king, but with one condition: to immediately leave the kingdom and never to return. Then, Greuceanu's brother was released from prison. A royal wedding and beautiful festivities followed. The air vibrated with excitement. For 3 glorious weeks, the kingdom rejoiced with joy and laughter. The end.